warm-up protocol, I'm going to be using the RAMP protocol. RAMP meaning raising the central nervous system, getting the body nice and warm, activating those muscle groups that we're going to be doing, mobilizing those joints that have restrictions that we're going to be needed to utilize in the exercise itself, and potentiating movement that will be done in the exercise session as well. So to start off, we'll go into the dynamic warm-up, raising our central nervous system. I'll start off with a piriformis stretch, so I'll use the length of the studio as my track. To start off, I'll do a piriformis stretch, so lifting my leg, getting a nice glute stretch, taking 2 steps forward, and doing the same thing on the other side. The next dynamic warm-up I'll do is a knee hug. So I'm grabbing the top of my knee, pulling as high as I can to my chest, taking 2 steps forward, doing the same thing on the other side. The next movement I'll do will be a butt kick to activate my hamstrings to get them fired up. So I'll have my hand behind my back and I'll just kick my butt like so. Right after that, I'll do some swoops. Toes up, other leg is slightly bent. I'm swooping down so I feel a nice stretch in my hamstring. I'll take 2 steps forward, doing the same thing on the other side. Last one I'll be doing is a lateral shuffle. So I'll be in this lateral position facing one wall. I'm going to load up one knee ever so slightly, the other one, and then shuffle my feet over. I'll do that to both ways. Activation phase of our warm-up protocol. So starting off here, I have the band around the top of my knees. I'm on my forearm, and what I'm looking for here is bringing my knee as far as I can away from the bottom leg, up for 2 seconds, holding at the top for a second, and down for 2 seconds. We'll do 5 reps of this. And on the last rep, I'll hold the top position for 10 seconds, feeling the glute fire on the side here. For the upper body activation piece, we're going to be performing band and pull parts. So this helps pattern the scapula and what we want it to do when performing our back exercises. So we're looking for retraction, meaning that the scapula is coming together and then coming apart. I'm looking for tension on the band the whole time, and pulling around to my mid-chest. Now I'll be beginning the mobility portion of our warm-up protocol. To start off, we'll be doing a cat camel for the lumbar and the pelvis. This is good for our client because he has chronic lower back pain. We're making sure that he has a good understanding of how to move his pelvis into posterior and anterior tilt, releasing that tension to his lower back so that he's safe when we get into our training session. So I'm going to be in this quadruped position here to start. What I'm thinking about here is that I'm going to tilt my pelvis towards the front of the room and rounding my lower back as far as I can. And then I'm going to rock my hips back into my heels. I'll come back to the top, keeping that same tilt, reset into a neutral spine, and then repeating that for 8 reps. The next mobility exercise I'll be performing is an active hip extension. So the client has lived a sedentary lifestyle for the past 15 years. So sitting at a desk, his hip flexor is in this shortened position as you'd be sitting. So we have to do the opposite of that, releasing some tension into the hip flexor, making sure that he's nice and safe going into our exercise training session today. So to start off, I'll be in this halfway position. I'm looking for my joint alignment, so I'll have my ankle over my knees, and my hip over my ankle. In this position, I have a dowel here. I'm going to squeeze into the dowel, taking a deep breath in, and I'm going to squeeze the bottom glute, or doing a posterior pelvic tilt. I'm going to drive forward about 5 to 10 degrees. You should feel it right at the top of the hip flexor here. You do not need to go any farther than that. And I'll reset. Squeeze into the dowel, take a deep breath in, squeezing the bottom glute, and then driving forward 5 to 10 degrees only. I'll perform 6 reps per side, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. Now to open up the glute as well as the hip flexor in that externally rotated position, I'm going to perform a 90-90. So my front leg is at a 90-degree angle and my back leg is at a 90-degree angle. In this position, I'm going to flex forward towards my front knee. What I'm looking for as a spine is I don't want it to just drop and round my body forward. Rather than I'm thinking that there's a cardboard right between my hip and my torso here, and I'm folding over it perfectly, going down for 4 seconds, and then helping myself up. Down for 4, and helping myself up. I'll perform 6 reps aside, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. portion of our warm protocol, we're going to be potentiating movement towards our exercise training session today. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is our breathing patterns and how we're going to utilize that to keep us safe when we're doing our exercises. So to start off, I'm going to be on the mat, on my back, with my legs up, one hand on my chest and one hand on my stomach. What I'm thinking about here is I'm taking a deep breath in through my nose, filling up my stomach like a hot air balloon, and releasing it. I'm going to practice that 3 times. So what you're thinking about here is 360 degrees of expansion. So even though your stomach is rising, you should feel your rib cage expanding and your lower back expanding as well with that breath. So we'll practice that another 3 times. Now we're going to use that same breathing technique and we're going to learn how to activate our core. So in this position, I'm going to take a deep breath in. As I breathe out, I'm going to tilt my pelvis towards the sky, bringing my lower back flush to the ground, and I'm going to keep that contraction with my lower abdomen. From there, I can keep shallow breaths as I maintain that contraction. Paired sets, so that's 2 exercises back to back with a 60 to 90 second rest in between each set. The first 2 exercises we'll be starting off with is a TRX squat and a TRX row. So the TRX squat, to start off our positioning, we want our feet shoulder width apart. We're going to break at the hips, allowing our knees to come forward like we're sitting in a chair. We're going to go 3 seconds on the way down, taking a deep breath at the top, pausing at the bottom for a second, and then breathing as we come up. This exercise will predominantly work the glutes, quads, as we go through. So in this position, I'm going to take a deep breath in at the top. The next exercise we'll be doing is the TRX row. This will predominantly hit the back muscles, like the lats and the rhomboids. To start off our position, we want to create tension at the top, keeping our spine neutral with our whole body, tilting in my pelvis and keeping that core engaged. I'll walk myself down until I'm comfortable and I feel tension. I'll start off in the starting position, taking a deep breath in, bracing my core, pulling up for 1 second, pausing at the top for a second, releasing my breath, and I'll go down for 3 seconds. Pairing exercises, we'll be doing a glute bridge paired with a core exercise of a prone plank. So the first exercise is a glute bridge. So this exercise predominantly hits your glutes on the back side here. I'm in this back position with my hands squeezing into the ground. My feet are about hip width apart. I'm taking a deep breath in. I'm bringing my lower back to the ground, tilting my pelvis towards the sky. I take a deep breath in and brace my core, coming up for 1 second. Not coming too high where my lower back gets engaged, where I'm just at the optimal hip extension. Then I'll go down and release my breath for 2 seconds. The next exercise will be a core exercise of a prone plank. In this position, I'll be on my forearms with my knees on the ground. I'll bring my body weight forward. 3 cues for this exercise. I'm thinking about breathing and bracing. So I'm taking a deep breath in from my nose, bracing, squeezing my glutes and tilting my pelvis, keeping my glutes engaged the whole time, and drawing my forearms into my body. So I'm thinking about a drawstring, putting my forearms and my knees together, and then keeping that activation for 30 seconds. The last 2 pairings of our exercises will be a heel dig isometric and a dead bug isometric. Isometric meaning we're just holding position still for 30 seconds for each exercise. So in the starting position, I'm going to have my heels on top of this box here. I have my hands into the ground. And the same thing, I'm going to tilt my pelvis towards the sky, bring my lower back to the ground. I'm going to take a deep breath in through my nose, brace my core, and then bring my butt off the ground ever so slightly. This exercise will predominantly hit the hamstrings on the back side of the leg. I'll hold here for 30 seconds. This exercise will be paired with a dead bug isometric. So this predominantly hits the core, keeping the back nice and safe as our lower back's on the ground. So in this position, much like what we did in our potentiation, I'm going to have the stability ball here. I'm going to squeeze opposite knee and opposite hand into the stability ball. And I'm squeezing for 30 seconds aside. keeping my lower back nice and flush into the ground, and keeping my pelvis tilted towards the sky.